This is Malik Amin Aslam, currently Pakistan's Special Advisor to the Prime Minister for Climate Change. Previously, he was a Global Vice President of the International Union for Conservation of Wildlife for 2 terms, from 2012 to 2020. In his capacity as Special Advisor, he is responsible for the environmental policy of Pakistan, just as he was responsible for the environmental policy of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa when he headed the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Green Growth Initiative from 2013 to 2018. The PTI government has placed a special emphasis on environmental policy, pursuing ambitious initiatives such as the 10 billion tree tsunami, which has been recognized and lauded internationally, including by the IUCN and World Economic Forum. Earlier this year, Soch interviewed Minister Aslam, who discussed a wide variety of issues relating to the environment, pollution, and climate change. In this first part of the interview, he discusses how environmental policy is made in Pakistan, Lahore's smog problem, and more.
एटीन्थ अमेंडमेंट के बाद एनवायरनमेंट का फंक्शन जो है उसको डिवॉल्व कर दिया गया है बट टू मी पर्सनली आई थिंक इट वाज रियली कैटास्ट्रॉफिक डिवॉल्वमेंट बिकॉज एनवायरनमेंट के the policy level functions जो हैं they have to be with the central government because you're dealing with multilateral agreements, 6-7 of those that you've signed और उसको फिर आप बैक करते हैं with actions on the ground. So जब ये devolve किया गया तो it was a disaster and then उसी की reaction में then the Ministry of Climate Change came into being. हमारे जो सारे projects चल रहे हैं बड़े उसके अंदर we do the planning and we have set up a mechanism with the provinces that we'll give half the funding from the federal government, half of the funding will come from the province, and we'll do the planning jointly. Implementation will be with the province, but the monitoring of that implementation will be done by the federal government. And the reason is we've signed up to a lot of multilateral agreements, and the reporting of those multilateral agreements has to be at a country level. So they can't be hearing from KP, Sindh, and Punjab separately, but they have to hear from Pakistan. So all of those efforts of the provinces has to be collected and then reported back to the global level. So that's how we're working through the system with the provinces. The three big ones, which are the UN Convention on Climate Change, UN Convention on Biodiversity, and the UN Convention on Desertification. These are the three main conventions that came out of the 1992 Rio conference. So Pakistan is a signatory to all of them, and they have their own obligations, mostly related to reporting, to meeting certain targets. For instance, the Biodiversity Summit has got a list of about 40 targets called the Aichi targets. Each one of them is very quantified, and you have to show performance on each one of those. Then we are also a signatory to what were previously called the Millennium Development Goals at the turn of the millennium, and now they're called the Sustainable Development Goals, and we have to meet certain targets, again quantified targets related to larger development but sustainable development, so it deals with air, water pollution, climate change, forestry, and these are you have to meet them till 2030. So Pakistan is a signatory to these also, and then there are other conventions. For instance, there's a convention on mercury, there's a convention on wildlife trade, there's a convention on CITES, which is the again on wildlife populations. So there's a host of smaller conventions, but the three big ones are, as I said, climate change, biodiversity, and desertification. Well, two things happened in the last, I would say, 2 decades. The first one was that Lahore lost its green cover. Lahore was known as a city of gardens right back from the Mughal times. But then in 10 years, and this is recorded data, Lahore lost 70% of its green cover, which was shaved off to make roads, to extend highways, underpasses, overpasses. And then the subsequent thing was that, yes, the roads got widened and then came the transport. So the transport increased. The trees decreased and the transport increased, and both of them are now major contributors to the smog problem. You asked the question of what constitutes the smog. So when we came to power, one of the first things we did was to look at source apportionment to see where the problem was. And we found out that 40% of the problem was because of transport. So because of the spike in transport and having the wrong sort of transport on the roads, there was a lot of pollution. Then that was followed by industrial pollution. So there were industries like steel mills in the main city of Lahore without scrubbers operating, with black smoke coming out of them. They were the problem. Then we had the problem with our farmers who were burning their crops because of climate change. Again, the switch over time between rice and wheat has reduced, and this is because of the weather being changed. And so the farmers have very little time to go from one crop to the other, and with the threshing that they do, there's a stubble that is left behind. So the easiest thing is to burn it and then come in with the new crop. So that was the third problem. And then, of course, we had a problem with cross-border pollution coming in. So these were the four main sources that this problem was being caused by. So we tried to address each one of them when we came in. We came out with a clear plan on transport. One of the main issues of transport was that we were onto Euro 2 standard fuel. So this was a 92 standard fuel, and it was much more polluting than the Euro 5 and the Euro 6 standard fuel. So we switched over, and Pakistan वाहिद मुल्क है जो कि एक ही जंप के अंदर यूरो 2 से यूरो 5 तक चला गया. आज आपको जो पेट्रोल पंप्स हैं उस पर यूरो 5 स्टैंडर्ड का फ्यूल मिलता है. दूसरा ट्रांसपोर्ट के प्रॉब्लम ये था कि आपके पास आउटडेटेड गाड़ियाँ जो कि धुआं ज़्यादा देती थी, तो उसमें हमने एक लीप फ्रॉग करके जो लेटेस्ट बेस्ट अवेलेबल टेक्नोलॉजी थी वो इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल टेक्नोलॉजी है. देयर वाज नो इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल पॉलिसी इन पाकिस्तान. So we have now formulated the policy, got it approved, and hopefully the e-transition is going to take place in Pakistan. We have set a target of 30% vehicles to go electric by 2030. फिर आपका जो ये थे स्टील मिल्स के स्क्रबर्स को नहीं लगे हुए थे, उसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट भी ये केस गया. Supreme Court has decided that all of them will put on scrubbers. So if you're not putting on the scrubber, you would have to pay this 50 lakh to the government. So वो scrubbers उनके लगाए गए और अब we try to ensure कि वो scrubbers चले उनके. The farmer issue was a bigger issue because it surrounded Lahore. It was not an easy issue to handle, but luckily we have developed what is now called a happy seeder machine. I tried that machine, about 3-4 months back when the rice season was there. We gave it out to about 1,000 farmers at the initial stage. और उसके अंदर ये होता है कि the stubble gets plowed back into the ground, and at the same time the machine puts in a seed for the wheat. So it reduces the cost for the farmer because it avoids one watering of the wheat. It gives you an organic fertilizer, and it gives you a better result for your wheat crop. So it's a win-win thing, but the only thing is that we have to take this machine out and spread it amongst the farmers so that at least the red zone area around Lahore, there is no crop burning. About 80% of this was subsidized, so the farmers were paying 20%, and it was very economical because, as I said, they were already saving costs while doing it. We did this, we had a carrot and stick policy, so we gave this carrot, but we were also enforcing a no crop burning ban in this area and penalizing people who were doing that. That has been very successful. Now the only thing remaining is one is that we जो यहाँ पे air quality के monitors हैं, they are house held monitors with very low ranges, very low accuracy. We need to have proper monitors with proper ranges, and they are very expensive. Luckily, we've now got a project from the World Bank. It's about $270 billion project. So we'll be setting up 10 of those high quality monitoring stations which will cover the city of Lahore and give out clear and accurate air quality data every day. So we'll know exactly what the position is. एक तो वो है. दूसरा the issue that remains is the India problem. Whenever the wind direction changes, because crop burning जो Indian Punjab में होती है, that's 90% as compared to what happens in Pakistan. We've got satellite pictures now to show that. And that is not being addressed in India. We need to have a regional cooperation with them. I've tried through the Foreign Office to let them know that you want to talk on this issue on the SARC forum, on the SASEP forum, but अभी तक वो forthcoming नहीं है. But let's see, अभी थोड़ा सा thaw हुआ है relations में. So I think this is one issue that we need to discuss regionally. I think it was because there are vested interests involved in Pakistan. Decisions don't happen because big lobbies have got big interests involved. In Pakistan, the big interest was of the refineries. Refineries in Pakistan, I think, is about 40% of the fuel is done through Pakistan's refineries. They were not upgrading. Although when you buy fuel, there's a small surcharge which was charged with the very purpose of creating a fund to allow the refineries to upgrade. But they were not doing it because they were not pushed. And now we have, by bringing in this new quality fuel, we have put in a market pressure on the refineries, but also we've given them deadlines of 2 to 3 years by which they have to upgrade to produce Euro 5 quality fuel. If they don't, they'll be closed down. The 60% or 70% of the fuel that we import is all Euro 5 now. We will not allow any Euro 2 to come be imported from a cut-off date that has already passed. PTI was the first political party that came up with a green agenda and actually started implementing it. We did it in KP province, and when we started doing it, we did have a lot of people in our party with the same mindset that this is an extra cost on development. But then we realized that there are strong political dividends that you get out of the investing in the environment. One of the things was that Pakistan has a very big young population. The youth is about 65% in Pakistan. It's their future that we are talking about when we talk about clean air, clean water, protecting our forests, cleaning up our waterways. This is their future that we're talking about. And we found out that whenever we had and then the social media is the other big platform that was not previously present. So we had these two factors present with us. And we found out that whenever we used to say tweet on the Billion Tree Tsunami project, it was not just the KP people who would get interested, but people in Karachi, in Quetta, and young people. That was one reason. The other reason is obviously that this is not a drag on development, but this is the right sort of development that we want in Pakistan. If development ends up polluting your water, polluting your air, and if you don't have air to breathe and water to drink, then what's the point of that development? And that a lot of countries have realized that. In Pakistan, common people are also now realizing that, especially in urbanized areas. They see that sanitation, for instance, is an environmental problem, and this in the Prime Minister's portal that we had, after 1 year when we checked where were the biggest complaints coming from, 40% or 45% of those related to bad water and sanitation. So this is the environment hurting the people, and people don't want it that way. So it is not an elitist problem anymore. 20 years back it may have been, but now it's a common people's problem. And if you solve it, you get strong political dividends out of it. So our plan, of planting forests, again, is also creating jobs. It creates green jobs. We created a lot of jobs even during the COVID era. So it engages the people, engages the community. So it's not just about planting trees, but it's about creating a green economy, which puts the economy in a direction which creates jobs, which protects nature. Similarly, the protected area initiative that we have, in which we are expanding our national parks, is also engaging local communities to get jobs in them. The Clean Green initiative that we have started, which is looking at, for the first time, putting in a set of quantifiable indicators for local governments to report back on. So we've got about 35 indicators related to solid and liquid waste, and these local governments are reporting back on them. Again, it is addressing a local people's problem. People feel a difference in their lives when their solid waste is properly collected and the liquid waste starts getting treated. It's not happening in Pakistan right now, but because of this movement now, local governments realize they have to do this. We are linking their funds with their performance on this. So all of these are issues which are, as I said, common people issues. Common people get benefits out of those, and they feel, if you are in a better environment, you have a better life. It's something that every person, every citizen would love to have. We have started a movement for Miyawaki forest, which is a quick grow forest. It grows 10 times faster in smaller places where land is available. It gives you more carbon intensity, more biodiversity, grows quicker. So we have employed that technique, and just yesterday I visited the 50th site in Lahore. So they have actually developed 50 sites in Lahore, and they want to take it to 200. So wherever there is land available, we are going to do the Miyawaki forest in Lahore. And then around Lahore, we've got some big forests coming up. For instance, the Baloki forest, we took about 3,500 acres of land, about an hour from Lahore, and that was taken over by the Kabza Mafia and the previous government. So we got that freed, and we have turned it into a nature reserve. So we're doing it with a lot of cities. For instance, I was in Quetta recently, where we have selected 2,000 acres around Quetta to be set up as a urban afforestation area. Similarly, Karachi, I was there last week. We have earmarked 5,000 acres to be planted in urban areas in the next 3 years. So urban forestry is very important because it not only brings the carbon down, it also brings the pollution down in the city, and it becomes the lungs of the city. So these are important initiatives, and for the cities also, and again, the common man benefits from them. Population is certainly a very big threat to the environment because it eats away any benefits that you put in. And in Pakistan, we need to have measures to control population. Unfortunately, it has really fallen off the radar in terms of government's policy focus. I think there used to be a Ministry of Population Welfare, which is, if not finished, I think it's after the 18th Amendment, it was devolved to the provinces. But we've lost focus on that. We need to bring that back because it's not only bad for the environment, but also for the economy. And you can't plan anything when you have this huge population base increasing at a very high rate. Rural to urban migration is also a serious issue. What was not present in Pakistan was there was no master planning of cities. We had a restriction on the height in cities, and there was no master planning. So what was happening was there was the sprawl occurring horizontally, eating up all the agricultural land around the cities. So we've changed that policy. We've removed the height restrictions, so now the cities can go up. And secondly, we have started a master planning exercise for about 80 cities. We hope to get those plans in place by August of this year. And after that, the cities will be ring fenced, and you won't be able to go beyond that. You can have another city built up, another place, but the city of that place will finish. So the land available will only be available for vertical rising. We will also be zoning the agricultural land so that agricultural lands will not be able to get converted into housing societies. We plan to do that, and that's a disaster, I think. Because you're doing two things. You're spoiling the climate equation. You are spoiling your food security equation, and you're just polluting the place with these unplanned, unregulated housing societies sprawl happening all over the place. Certainly, our animals are not well kept, and this has to do with the budgets that you give for the animals, and they get squandered. Unfortunately, these are voiceless creatures, and we have not been very kind to them. And the other thing is that this colonial mindset about putting exotic animals in small cages, and then watching them. We need to get out of this. I think in Islamabad we've already done it, that we want to move towards open air, open enclosure zoos, where sort of a semi-safari environment. The animals are kept, and then there are indigenous animals. So we're not getting Siberian tigers to come to Islamabad where they won't survive, but you keep local indigenous animals in their own environment. The best thing is to see them in their own habitats. I was just in Hingol National Park and I saw ibex and crocodiles in their own environment. That was the best thing to do. And we have in Pakistan very good opportunities to do that. We are expanding our protected areas at a very fast pace. In just 8 months, we've created 15 new national parks, adding on to the 30 existing. So 50% increase in just 8 months. And we want to do this to protect the animals' habitats and create these avenues for ecotourism. So I think we need to move out of the zoo culture, small cages, exotic animals, and move towards the other direction.